Hola, I'm Nurchin and this is El Chupacabra. Literal translation, goat sucker. Today I'm going to break it down into what is it, the Chupacabra and the animal kingdom, alien, human creation, and where to find one, alright? Let's get to it. Now the Chupacabra is a cryptozoology icon, so there's much more information out there compared to my previously more niched cryptids. But that research has not been subjected to my critical analysis and mined like a steel trap. Jokes aside though, most of the information in this video as well as the rest of the internet is thanks to one man called Benjamin Radford. He spent 5 years tracking down all the known sightings and reported information on this creature and published it in the book The Chupacabra, Vampire Beast in Fact, Fiction and Folklore. This book is super thorough, like damn. So what is it? The Chupacabra, shrouded in mystery and surrounded by death. Since the early 1950s, reported sightings of this creature have popped up starting in Puerto Rico, traveling all across the US and the rest of the world, famously Mexico. Even Johnny Depp said he saw one. In Japan.
I was attacked yesterday morning by a very rarely seen or experienced animal called the Chupacabra. I fought with it for hours.
These reports would often include one of two very different descriptions. Our first contestant is a 1.5 meter tall reptilian with grey scaly skin and large red eyes. Our second contestant is a large dog with rough leathery skin and ferocious fangs. Gorgeous. Some sightings even said it looked like a savage kangaroo with wings. It would either run on all fours or bound like a kangaroo trying to protect 3 large claws on either hand. All these descriptions could be applied to a biped or a quadruped, and they had a row of leathery scales or quills down their back, but we'll get into that one later. And don't get me started on Scooby-Doo.
Jinkies, El Chupacabra!
You can't just put Bigfoot in Mexico. So, one night this thing appears, and it does as the name suggests. It starts sucking goats. Not like that. You see, most of the encounters with the Chupacabra didn't involve humans, and was just the mass slaughter of livestock. And not just the cabras. As well as goats, this thing apparently attacked cows, pigs, sheep, dogs, cats, turkeys, ducks, chickens, so many chickens. It would come in the dead of night and slaughter large quantities of livestock. One night in Mexico in 2001, a farmer claimed that 35 of his sheep had been killed. 35 in one night. So the animals would lie dead and they'd have 3 puncture holes in their neck and their bodies completely drained of blood. That's right, as well as being one of the world's most recognized cryptids, this guy's also one of the world's most recognized vampires. Now it's a little early in the video, but I think it's about time I put on my skeptic hat. Now I can't say for certain, but these reports must have been wrong. Now I've done some quick math here, and using the average size of a cow and their average blood volume, that's about 40 litres of blood. Now can you imagine drinking 20 2-litre bottles of milk out of holes no larger than your fingers, and then doing that up to 30 times in one night? Now I'm not saying the Chupacabra doesn't drink blood, I'm just saying these reports where the animals apparently had no blood left in their body, it's just country fear-mongering. There are just so many unanswered questions here, it's hard to know where to start. People do love jumping to some pretty extreme conclusions with the Chupacabra, especially when most of the answers are sitting right in front of us. Maybe literally. Okay, there may not be any answers here, but we'll be sure to find a clue or two when we have a look at the Chupacabra and the animal kingdom. Let's get this one out of the way quickly. Most of the reports about the Chupacabra can be chalked up to stray or wild dogs. If you're talking about North America, you can put coyotes in there too. Some dogs decide to attack some local livestock, and this makes for a more interesting story. And when the hunting is good, it's not that surprising that some of the animals would be left without being eaten. But where did the descriptions come from then? I mean, that doesn't look like your average dog. Unfortunately, this is where a little thing called sarcoptic mange comes in. Mange is a form of disease that is caused by parasites. When a dog or coyote or whatever have you gets mange, its hair falls out, its skin gets crusty, and it loses a lot of weight. If somebody doesn't know what mange is, they see one of these dogs and they think, bam, that's a Chupacabra. Honestly, a large majority of the Chupacabra descriptions fit a mangy dog to a T, and we still see it today. People across America keep coming forward saying, I've caught the Chupacabra, just to find it's an animal with mange. Lots of dogs, lots of coyotes.
A DeWitt County deputy in training reacts to seeing what just may be
a Chupacabra.
Some raccoons.
It eats with its hands, okay? They cannot identify what this animal is.
Even a cat.
Gafford is convinced.
It was certified Chupacabra all the way. And that's good enough for me.
Anyway, what about the blood sucking? And it seems awfully strange, and it would be if it was more feasible. A common defense is that there are blood-sucking animals out there already. Leeches, mosquitoes, and vampire bats, of course. And while that's true, there's quite a large size difference in these creatures. For a creature the size of a dog to live off blood meal alone, it would need ridiculous amounts of blood, and it would constantly be on the point of exhaustion. We wouldn't see the occasional livestock slaughter, it would be a nightly occurrence. It's believed a lot of the descriptions of the Chupacabra come from the vampire bat, like its wings, leathery skin, and large eyes. While the vampire bat does drink blood and has a supposed fondness for goats, I think it stands as a good example how a creature the size of a dog could not live off blood alone. Now, with the blood sucking aside, I do like this next one. In Puerto Rico, around the same time as the first Chupacabra sightings, there was a huge influx in the population of rats. With the rats came more mongooses, and when all the rats were eaten, that left an influx of mongooses. These mongoose started to starve and started looking for larger prey. This isn't exactly common behaviour for mongoose, but desperate times call for desperate measures. These mongooses, while lethal, couldn't eat that much, which may have led to the ideas that the corpses were left uneaten. Then, as the mongoose population died off, the reports of the Chupacabra became less frequent. Coincidence? There have also been reports that point to the Chupacabra possibly being a panther that's roaming the countrysides. But a body was never recovered, so this may have just been the cause of 1 or 2 attacks. This would be one of many cases regarding alien big cats, but that's a story for another time. So we've looked at dogs, coyotes, raccoons, bats, mongooses, panthers. At this point, the culprit list is starting to look like a zoo. This, unfortunately, is where the Chupacabra loses a lot of its credibility. When every attack on livestock gets blamed on the Chupacabra, it starts to feel like a blanket statement boogeyman. But what if we're looking in the wrong place? Mangy dog sure fits the bill, but what about the other lad? He almost looks alien. That's right, one of the most common theories about the Chupacabra is that it's from another planet. Some of its stranger descriptions include grey scaly skin, large eyes, and bipedal. That kind of fits the bill for the cliche alien called the Grey. Some would say that it would leave behind the smell of sulphur after an attack. Some would also say that the livestock could be found with its organs and genitals missing, sometimes cut off with surgical precision. Though these were often the same people that said they'd been ripped to pieces, so either they don't know what surgical precision means, or they're making stuff up. Then again, I don't know what American healthcare is like. Now, this was a pretty well recognized description of the Chupacabra when it was first published in 1955, a description given by the woman Madeline Tolentino. But a few years ago, our boy Ben Radford tracked down and interviewed this woman. Turns out she watched the 1995 film Species only a few weeks before the encounter. Like dust in the wind. Now, she may have seen something, but the fact she saw pretty much the same creature in a movie a few weeks prior doesn't make for the most convincing argument. I'd like to be optimistic, but I think that's a pretty convincing nail in the coffin of old Grey here. But there's one rogue theory that the writer of the movie, Dennis Feldman, had actually seen a Chupacabra, and that's what he based the monster from the film off. The alien thing is nothing new, just like the Loveland Frogman. If you don't think your story's gonna stick, add a UFO in there and bam, you got yourself a story. I think it's kinda neat. The Chupacabra is a lost pet of alien tourists, or the Chupacabras are trying to harvest our animals for future food. But honestly, there is no evidence to back up any of this. You know it isn't looking likely when an elusive giant bat hound is a more believable story than yours. But there's still one theory to go. Get your head out of the stars for a second. Oh, actually, wait, put your head back up in the stars. What's that? Why, that's the NASA space station. Yep, of all the animals and all the theories, this one may make you change your mind on our little friend here. It's the late 90s and space is all the craze. A few years since the space race and NASA's looking for some other projects. It's believed that many of said projects include the genetic modification of animals, maybe to advance medicine or maybe to breed a species that can inhabit Mars. Either way, let's say one of them escapes and leaves a path of terror and destruction. People have also pointed to weapons testing by the US near Puerto Rico, or chemicals, kind of like Agent Orange, that were sprayed near the countryside. Could radiation or chemicals have caused the mutation of a living animal? Could the Chupacabra be the product of a human experiment? This theory would explain a lot of questions around the Chupacabra. Why did they appear so suddenly? Why do they look like animals that already exist? Why would an animal kill another and then not eat it, almost as if it's lost its natural instincts? And I will admit, this theory clears up the bane of all cryptids. Why have we never found the body of one of these creatures?
We need a body, we need a live one, a dead one, scales, spines, teeth, bones, essentially anything but what we have now.
The answer is government cover-up. I know it's cliche, and don't worry, I've made some improvements on my tinfoil hat. Nice. Every time one of these creatures pops up, officials appear and say it's just a sick animal, sometimes taking the body away. It's possible that all those years ago, one of those mangy coyotes was the Chupacabra, and that's why reportings disappeared. In the mid-2000s, a reporter from Argentina claimed he'd seen multiple Chupacabra-like creatures in a local mine. Apparently once he reported it, an armed task force from NASA came through to clear it out. The story went public, but unfortunately, there's never any evidence to back it up. And don't worry, government cover-up aside, I don't count no evidence as evidence. And if the government wants to protect us from Chupacabras, I say let them. Getting killed by one of those things would really suck. There are many more reports and variations of these stories, but there's a bit too much to get through in this short amount of time. If you are interested, I'd recommend Ben Radford's book. But despite all his research, Radford was never able to locate one of these Chupacabras. Well, I happen to know a man who doesn't let past failures nor 202 pages of condemning evidence get in between him and a good hunt. I am of course talking about Wendell Elmwood. Over to you, Wendell.
I've got bad news, lads. We finally found one, and before we could catch it, men in suits showed up and they took Rob. Yes, this Chupacabra is some bad news, and I do recommend you try find one. But, if you are, search the surrounding farmlands in the US and Puerto Rico. Try lure it out with the scent of blood, especially that of a goat. Keep your nose keen for the smell of sulfur. And finally, bring one of these, just in case.
Hey, I think he's over here.
Oh, sorry lads, I've got a dash. And if you don't hear back from me, remember, the truth is out there.
Wasn't that a bit of fun? I hope. You may notice it's been a while since my last update. That's because I went on holiday for a few weeks and then immediately moved to a new house. So hopefully future uploads will return to schedule. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I insist you do. There's lots of exciting stuff coming over the horizon, including a complete visual overhaul. So like, subscribe, tell your friends, and hopefully I'll have more content up soon.